A leader has to take the risks. Thank you so much for coming on Wealth on the Beach podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I've actually really been excited to have you on, Emilio. I know that you are an actor and you are a motivational speaker, and I know that you're a men's coach and domestic violence advocate. And I know there's so much more that you're doing as well, I'm sure. And I'm just excited about being with you today. So tell me, man, I was curious because you talk a lot about relationships. So I'm really curious to know from your point of view, why it is that schools just don't teach relationships when, of course, it's one of the number one things that we need to have in our life to develop a great life.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's a quote out there, I forget who said it, but it's, the quality of our life is based on the quality of our relationships. And it's not being taught. And, just like finances and a whole bunch of other things, which I'm glad that a lot of organizations and people like yourself are, revolutionizing those spaces and more. But, we're really about not only talking about relationships, and it's not just the relationship that I have with like Rachel, my wife, it's all relationships. So relationship to self, to others, me and you, to the world around us, to God's source, universe, whatever anybody wants to call it, higher force driving the bus. So all of those relationships. And me and my wife's company, Relationship Renegades, the mission is to co-create a world where healthy relationships are the new norm. Because, when you look at society and the media, it's focused on toxic and unhealthy relationships. And so, we want to help change that. And we're doing our best to give away our strengths, gifts, talents, and energetic blueprint, if you will, to achieve that.
Well, it's a pretty big task because let's be honest. I mean, the media is not going to help you. I mean, the media makes money creating bad relationships and highlighting bad relationships. And the media also focuses on the negative. I mean, everything is negativity. Right. Everything is, pain and suffering. And so, one of the reasons why I love doing what I do is because I get to talk to people like you, and we get to talk about positive things, and we get to talk about things that are giving us a healthier life, a more fun life, and maybe some growth in our life. So how important is it that people focus on self-improvement and growth?
I mean, I think it's the number one thing. Honestly, I think, we just finished talking about this. We did this edutainment kind of comedy sketch, kind of in Playhouse in Beverly Hills the other day. And we were talking about this very thing. So one of the things that, and to answer this is kind of twofold, and to preface it a little bit, when we talk about relationships, we want to have people experience a higher love. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, there was a point where we couldn't go to the moon or couldn't fly. And people were like, that's impossible, until it was possible, right? There's a point where we were like, hey, look, we're going to be able to do podcasts and all this business around the world, and this little device is going to fit in our pocket. What are you talking about? That's impossible, until it's possible. Everything, right? In any industry, when it comes to relationships, there are stories and limiting beliefs that people are telling, and it just comes out like natural. Oh, old ball and chain. Oh yeah, when you get married, oh, you better do that and travel, because when you have kids, you can't. There's all these things that are in the ether, and oh, you can't do that. That's impossible. Well, until it's possible. So the higher love we're trying to achieve is where what is impossible right now in relationships, and how can we make that possible, right? So when I think about that higher love, I think about one of the main themes of Relationship Renegades, and it's creating a space where both parties feel safe, seen, heard, and loved. And when both parties are committed, to answer your question now, to growth, both parties, then that's fertile soil, Daniel, for the plant, for the relationship to grow exponential, right? Because if we're in the day-to-day life and there's kids running around and there's business, and we lost a family member, or there's a lot of chaos going on, which happens, life happens. if we're both committed to growth, and let's say one of it gets triggered, I know, because I'm committed to growth, that because I'm getting triggered, I know that that's my stuff. I'm not sure if I can cuss here, but that's my stuff. And yeah, that's my shit, right? And if Rachel gets triggered, she knows that that's her stuff that she's got going on. So she knows that she needs to look the woman in the mirror, and I know that I need to look the man in the mirror because something's resonating with me that hasn't been healed yet. But the key is that, one, we're committed to growth, so we know when that happens, we're in a safe space to look at that and to communicate with each other on how we can remove something that's within us that is still triggering us. And so the key there is to create that safe space to allow for that to happen. So when you say, how important is committed to growth, I think, well, that commitment is step number one, and a lot can flourish from that space because of that.
And so I'm curious, Emilio, I mean, where'd you learn all this stuff, man? I mean, like, why, like, what makes you the expert, or what experience did you have in your life that maybe you learned from somebody, maybe you had a mentor? Where did this come from, man? I mean, because obviously, I get that you know what you're talking about, but where did this come from?
Yeah, so I grew up in El Paso, Texas, and my upbringing, we grew up very USA poor. I was in a gang growing up. I was very much in a domestic violence type household. Dad was very abusive to my mom, physically, mentally, emotionally. There was a few times physically, but mainly mentally and emotionally, which I think kind of hits harder and kind of scars deeper. And so I was just in a constant fight or flight my entire life. Always finding my mom or sister somewhere inside or outside the house crying because of something that my dad did, and would go and calm them down. Didn't know what I was doing. Sometimes I would say something, sometimes I wouldn't. But basically, I grew up in a household where there wasn't healthy relationships. Now, there's so many different tangents that I won't get into because my dad, people are a product of their environment, and it's not to give my dad excuses, but like, people just don't know what they don't know. It's just all unobtained consciousness. And so without going in all these different rabbit holes, I just didn't see a lot of healthy relationships. And I remember in second grade, literally, I was in the bathroom, and just because I didn't want to be outside with the screaming and yelling and everything. And I remember making a promise to myself, like, this is not, I don't know how I had this consciousness, but I was like, this is not the way that it should be. Like, I am not going to create this for my life. And I remember making a promise in second grade to myself, like, for that. And there's a whole long story, but I remember in sixth grade, one of my grandmothers lived right next to Barnes and Noble, and I would ride my bike all over the neighborhood, and I found myself in a Barnes and Noble at that time. Hadn't been in there, but I kind of was walking in different stores, walked in there, and somehow found myself into the self-help section. And I started, like, just books would start to call me, and I would start to read them, and I would just kind of sit there all day and, like, just open up books and, like, scan them and read them. So I found self-development indirectly early on, and that just kind of catapulted me and laid a great foundation, not only to, like, learn more about myself and other people and how to create friends and influence people and all these types of things very early on, and then it was just a failing forward the 10,000 times. I got into toxic relationships a ton of times. I became my father a ton of times. I hit rock bottom through all that journey and lost everything in my life. Worse than I thought I was going to marry, just the whole gamut of things, to where I finally got into a place of, like, nothingness, lost my entire ego, lost literally everything, and had to rebuild and finally look the man in the mirror more than ever. I'd been doing it for so long because I didn't want to become him. But it was like, okay, I have something deeper. I have to go even deeper. I have to look the man even more so. And when I did, everything changed. So, on a high level, it was all that hero's journey to allow me to continue to remove the things that don't serve me anymore, continue to really remove and unbecome everything that I'd become, to find out who I really was. And I think at that place, that resonance, that energy that I was giving off really attracted the woman I have today. My wife, being able to attract someone like that and also not self-sabotage and continue that healthy relationship. And of course, I will, we're always learning, we're always growing. So I'm a student for life. And so always emptying the cup, if you will, right? As much as I've learned in this space, it's like, well, how can I continue to empty and see something maybe I haven't seen before? So that's a little bit.
And so I'm curious, when you were in Barnes and Noble,
Yeah.
what were one of those first books that maybe lit the fire for you, or maybe something that really resonated with you early on?
Yeah. I mean, funny enough, I remember in second grade, first one was how to win friends and influence people. Funny enough, I was really attracted to leadership. So first, early on, there were actually a lot of leadership books from Gladwell. And so those, funny enough, it wasn't like, oh, I want to get relationships, let me find a relationship book. Something called me to leadership. And I started reading a lot of leadership books, most of all of Gladwell's books. And then I think the second book I read was how to, the Carnegie book, my gosh,
Well, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean,
that was one of them. Yeah. The second one was oh my God, I'm drawing a blank right now. The rich one. It was like how to get rich in, it'll come to me. Okay. But it was a lot of those books that first came to me. And then I think right after that is when I started diving more into leadership books from like Alison Armstrong, Understanding Women, Understanding Men, and just kind of, going on that path.
Yeah, because really the relationship deal is, I think, hard to navigate for most people, because is it just that we just don't understand the other person? Really, I think totally. Because when you said right now, it really, you said, to feel safe, to feel seen, to feel heard, to be understood. It's almost not even that crazy of a concept of what you're talking about. If you could just understand somebody, matter of fact, I just had a conversation with my daughter. She's 16 years old. And of course, when they're 16, a lot of emotions going on, right? A lot of stuff's happening in their minds and their, in their hormones, everything. And we're having a conversation. I said, I think the most important thing that we can do to create a better relationship between me and you is for us to understand each other. And I told her, I was very, very direct with her. And I said, I really understand you. I said, because you're kind of me in girl form when I was your age. We're actually very similar in a lot of ways. And it was crazy how I turned kind of a negative conversation into a positive conversation just by saying, I understand you. Like, I get you. I totally get why you're feeling like you're feeling. And it just changed everything. It was really pretty cool. But what's your thoughts on that?
Oh man, so many things. It's so funny that you're talking about the understanding piece, because we just came out with new apparel that one of the main themes of the apparel and just our brands is seek to understand. And especially in the world we live in right now, right? Where people are polarized, people are whether it's politics or religion or whatever category, people are just completely separated, when it's like, why can't we just seek to understand the other? And I think when that happens, the walls go down, people can see maybe the hidden truths that neither party are seeing, and be able to get to a place back to love, a higher love. And I think from that state of consciousness, a lot of solutions, a lot of peace, love, joy, blessing, happiness comes from that, from both parties. And I think at the very deep core, we're craving connection and community more than ever. And it's showing up as fire to fire. But when you seek to understand, I think that's a great place. So it's awesome that you're doing that with your daughter. And I think the other thing that came up when you talk about the differences between men and women, there's so much that can be said here. But one of the things coming up at the present moment is some great work from Alison Armstrong, since I mentioned her earlier. She's got a great book called Understanding Women, Unlocking the Mystery. And one of the things that we talk about in our coaching is kind of stemming from that. Back with our ancestors, when we were hunters and gatherers, men had to go out and hunt, for the food. And they had to be so single focused on one thing that they couldn't have a lot of things going on. It had to be single focused. Now the women, on the other hand, had to hold the baby, hold the basket, walk throughout the field, scanning the peripheral, making sure there's no threats or anything coming by, being able to look at the right berries to pick, being able to like hold all that, scan, remember the berries, which ones are actually poisonous. Oh, this one with the 3 stripes, you can't do that. Oh, the 2 stripes with the dot here, I can do that. That's why they pay attention to details a lot of the times. So they can multitask and do that very well, whereas men cannot. And this has been proven in so many different areas. But understanding that, like when she knew that if I was focused on a task, that it was hard for me to hear what she was saying or anything else, that she had to, in a very loving way, say, hey, love, I want to talk to you about something, whatever it was, like, is now a good time? If it was, or if it was another time, great. She knew that I could only focus on one thing at a time. Whereas when there's a lot of stuff going on, we get chaotic and we may react to something. But knowing that, oh, my mind, can only do one thing at a time, not like in a bad way, but like just understanding that. And also, we love, as she would say to Alison Armstrong, we love to kill the deers, like back in the answer. Like if we have a task, if we need something to do, we have a mission, we're going to go and shoot that deer. We're going to go and hunt that. So rather than men wanting to fix certain things when women just want to be heard, because that's kind of a classic thing you'll find around relationships, and men want to do that, want to fix stuff. Well, she knows when she actually needs something done, when we need to kill the deer. She knows that about me, right? She knows that about men. And so she's like, babe, I have an X task for you. And I'm like, yes, and so she can utilize that in the right ways. So again, just anytime we can understand each other, then we can help each other grow in that manner, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And when we were talking about books and authors, and one person that came to my mind was, and I know this is going to sound weird because it's completely not your normal relationship book, but and I'm in the investment business. His name's Ray Dalio, and he wrote a book called Principles. Okay,
yes,
he wrote a book called Principles. And so how it pertains to business and also relationships, creating great relationships, is the fact he talks about radical transparency and radical truthfulness. And I think that what they did in their company to create the best, the greatest hedge fund in history, is they all made a decision early on that they're going to seek to understand each other in a way that's transparent and truthful, where, they can, tell somebody else. I mean, matter of fact, the lowest guy on the totem pole can go to the highest guy on the totem pole and say, you're wrong. And this is why I think you're wrong. And the top guy is not going to get upset by that. He's just going to say, okay, show me how, we can make it better, and show me how it's, because everybody's seeking to understand the truth versus trying to just appease somebody else. Because I think sometimes that appeasement leads to resentment, maybe.
Yeah.
It leads to that animosity that builds up over time. When you stick so much stuff under the rug over time, obviously, eventually it's going to explode. And so it was a nice little, thought of kind of bringing business and relationship books together. And so tell me a little bit about the 5 Ps. So, well, what's that about?
5 Ps. So the 5 Ps, initially I had a company called Resilience for Humanity. And that's when I started talking about the 5 Ps, but it blended very well actually when we started to, when both me and my wife kind of combined our companies into what is now called Relationship Renegades. And it actually started to work very well with relationships when it came to how to find the love and lifestyle you've always wanted. And so the 5 Ps are presence, purpose, power, people, and preparation. And so, we've always heard, that, well, first of all, the number one human impediment is that we live in our heads. With the, constant ego-centered, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough, or maybe I'm better than mentalities. A lot of people, in humanity are stuck in the past because the stories are running them. And what they'll do is they'll create the stories, they'll fuse to that story, emotions will rise from that story. And the next thing you know, they've created their own suffering over and over and over again. And so they're either stuck in the past or they're stuck in the future, hoping, wishing, praying, or maybe even afraid of what may come next. And where we, as we always know, because there's so many books and people who've talked about this for a long time now, all we ever have is the present moment. So I think of doing things, right, to constantly get you back into present, because if all we have is this present moment, and if we not even look to like, how do we conquer the day, but how do we conquer every moment? Not about what I'm about to say next, but like what's beautiful in this moment, and what's beautiful in this moment. There's a lot of magic, right? And that's all. Whether they've always wanted, the answers lie in the present moment. So going forward to purpose, right? A lot of people don't even know what's important to them these days. And maybe they're starting to look at it more and more since the pandemic, right? Like, man, that kind of forced a lot of people like to remove jobs, to pivot, et cetera. Purpose, as we both know in the work that we do, it's important. But not only living a value aligned life, and that may change chapter to chapter, but also vocation, what life is asking of you. A lot of times people they think it's this way, and they keep trying to go forward, right? And they keep trying to like run into a brick wall almost, and they're experiencing a lot of pain. When like, the whole obstacle is the way, right? Like it's like God was telling you, or source was telling you to go right, and you're still kind of trying to go right. So I think, or straight. And so, I mean, I had to face that when I used to do, I was finance, accounting, oil and gas, consultant, financial analyst. That was like olden days. I feel like it's a past life now. But when I kept trying to go in there, I experienced a lot of pain and suffering. My vocation, what life was asking of me, was what I'm doing now. But it's a hard transition to completely like let go of all that, do a 180. But when you're present, when you're tapped in, when you're starting to really get uncomfortable in life, you start to really craft that purpose, both values and vocation. When it comes to power, there's a lot to say there. I'll just say one thing, a lot of people have lost their power. And I'll put this in terms of relationships. They've lost their power in their life. Could be a breakup, could be getting fired, could be a loss of a family member, what have you, right? Or just trauma that they had in their life, whether they've known they've experienced a trauma or not. Well, one way of getting their power back, I think is a great practical tip, and just something important to know, is most people these days are numbing themselves, right? They're distracting, hiding, suppressing, denying what's going on within themselves. They'll Netflix and chill. They'll numb out in some way or another. But all those emotions, it has power over them, right? It's literally, Daniel, like holding a beach ball underwater. If you held a beach ball underwater, right? There's a lot of energy that you have to keep to try to keep that beach ball underwater. Now, most people are having like a lot of beach balls underwater. They're holding it. It's taking their energy. It's sucking their energy. Well, to release that beach ball is to accept and welcome all the emotions that they're experiencing. So if someone gets triggered and they're feeling guilty, shameful, anger, if they said, anger, come on in, I'm glad you're here, really feeling anger, for example, because it's just energy, it's just data, to really have that process and flow out of you. By accepting anger and saying, I'm glad you're here, the power that the anger doesn't have control over you, you have control around. You immediately took your power back. And then that beach ball is released. There's a lot of freedom from that. And that's a whole nother workshop. But so power, I think, is so key in a lot of ways to gain your power back for everything you want in your life and your relationships. People, very easy. I'll just say there's a way to create your tribe, connection and community. That's important, right? With everything in life. And then preparation, I'll just say, with the time that we have, there's a quote that says, life is like the ocean. There's always going to be waves. The good news is that you can learn how to surf. And I think if you can prepare yourself in a stoic way, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, financially, all these ways, 1% better every day, then that upward trajectory is going to be able to like prepare you for those waves. When they do hit, they're not going to be as bad. You're going to be able to get back on the surfboard faster, bigger, faster, stronger. So I think having those 5 Ps readily available, I think really allows you to move at an upward trajectory, really connect more with the self, and enhance all your relationships going forward.
I mean, I think it really just comes down to that self-improvement. All of these areas that you just talked about, the presence, the purpose, the power, the people, and the preparation. It's just, it's just doing it over and over again, and not allowing the failure to stop you. Because every one of these areas We've all had failures. We've all screwed things up. We screw things up all the time, even today. You do, I do, everybody does. We make mistakes. But when you're constantly, like you said, trying to get better 1% every day, just trying to improve all the time, going to the seminars, watching the YouTube videos, listening to the podcast. These are all ways for you to become more and more aware and conscious of what is really happening. And I think it's powerful when you talked about those, the beach balls underwater. What an amazing visual, because this is what we're all doing. We are all, I mean, and I've always thought about it as like spinning plates, like we're all just spinning all these different plates all over the time. You're trying to keep this one up and you're trying to keep this one up. And at some point in time, we have to make sure that we understand what our real purpose is, and then take some massive action towards that direction, even though we know we're going to suck at it at first. We're going to fail at it at first. We're going to make tons of mistakes at first. But the beauty of it is, if, like you said, right, we just keep getting better every day, every day, every day. Eventually you wake up a year later and you go, wow, I'm a little bit better than I was. I mean, I feel amazing at 47. I feel amazing that, I'm probably in the best health of my life. I'm more patient than ever. I'm more giving than ever. I'm more sane than ever. Really. And again, my life's not perfect by no means. My life's not perfect, but I can tell you that I'm more clear on the things that I want and my life's direction more than ever. And that's again, because of decisions about purpose. And I know you talk about the 5 C's. So I'm going to test your memory here again on the 5 C's. Man. So explain to me what the 5 C's are.
Yeah. So when I brought in the 5 P's from Resilience for Humanity, that really very much adapted to the relationship world that me and Rachel talk about. The 5 C's was what she brought in for her company. She used to have a company called Disruptive Movement. It's all about disrupting fear, doubt, and limiting beliefs, and becoming the hero of your own life story, because she's an actress. We're in that world and are trying to bridge the gap between entertainment and self-development in a powerful way. So when she brought in that from her company, as we merged, those were her 5 C's. And so she's usually the one that talks about those 5 C's.
Well, I won't put you on the spot.
No. Let's see. I think it's connection, compassion, and you can test me. Connection, or let's see, curiosity, compassion, connection. Did I say those? Let's see. Compassion, curiosity, connection, curiosity, and hold on.
You got 3. I think you got 3.
Did I get 3? And then I said,
I think you got 3.
She's the one who talks about that.
Connection, compassion, and curious.
Connection, compassion, curious. Those are the 3 I got. And then let's see, Rachel.
Yeah, where's Rachel, man? Get Rachel over here, man. No, I'm just playing.
A lot of those have really.
Let's talk about the connection part. Because one of the things I wanted to talk about, because just being a man, one of the things that I feel like I'm missing in my life right now is that great connection with other males, though. I think that, because I've been in business for 25 years and I've had just so many relationships and great connections, great friendships, but as time goes on, some of these people in my life, they move on to different industries, or they move on to different levels in the business. They become their own leaders and they're building their own companies. And so I feel like I've kind of lost some of those really close relationships. And so I think the connection part, I think for us to really be fulfilled and happy, I think we really need great connections with people. And how do you, what's your thoughts on that?
I completely agree. It's one of my most important passions. I have a passion for helping men become better men and better fathers and better brothers and better husbands. And there's a lot of men that are lonely out there. And because they don't know how to communicate, they didn't grow up with a father figure, or if he was there, it was an abusive relationship, or he wasn't there mentally or emotionally. And I think we've heard over time and time again that like, we need to express feelings. It's okay to cry. I mean, it's just a natural process of the human body, that it's okay to be vulnerable. That vulnerability is a strength. And so I think men just don't know what they don't know, and they don't know how to communicate because they didn't learn how. They don't know about love because they just learned about porn and through other means. So there's just a lot of ways where men, and we could say just anybody, but I think you brought up men, and there's I've done a lot of men's work and shadow work. Love going to men's retreats where, you know, we look at our shadows and we do a lot of men's work, and it's just it's creating a space. The way that I look at it, a lot of these men's retreats are, if you think about an egg, there's all these processes, let's say in a 48-hour intensive weekend, where it's like slowly cracking the egg, and at the very end there's a process where any process for any man could be different, can completely break open that egg. And I think what's important to know is that we must break down. There was a theme. We haven't brought it up in a while because there's been an evolution to Relationship Renegades, but we used to talk about lose your Superman to find your Wonder Woman. And what I mean by that is that, and this is an overarching theme to kind of answer, Daniel, but it's important, I believe, is with media and society, we're like, okay, we have to be this type of guy, this Superman, right? This is the car I need to drive, the house I need to do, the business I need to have, the money I need to have, the way that I need to talk, the way that I need to ask to connect with women, the pickup things. Oh, you read in the magazines how to pick up a girl, how to do this, how to get this, how to be this person. And so then all day long, all these men are creating an avatar of what they think this person is going to like. And then it works. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And then all of a sudden that woman finally falls in love with that avatar. And then as the relationship goes on, you start to show who you really are fully. And then all of a sudden they're like, who the hell is this? And then there's fights, and then there's divorce, and then there's all these things. It's like, well, you never showcased who you really were, but people were scared to do that, right? And there's a quote out there that says something like, don't, be or say things so that people will like you. Be yourself, and the right people will love you. Something like that. And basically it cuts to the core of, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, right? And so I think whether it's in a relationship or back to the men's work and men just connecting with men and having that healthy relationship, I think it's important to just be fully you. But people don't know how. So when I say lose your Superman to find your woman or Wonder Woman, it's also lose your Superman to find peace, love, joy, happiness, blessings, abundance, whatever that is. And so when you start to break down those masks, the walls, the characters that you've created over time to be Superman, when you start to lose those with different processes, different things we can chat about, but then all of a sudden you come back to like the infinite, beautiful, abundant, incredible person that you always were, you always are. And then that's really the real Superman.
Let me ask you this, because what you said was right on. And when you talk about the Superman, one of the things I think about is the ego, right? I mean, that's really the ego. The ego keeps us broke. The ego keeps us in pain. The ego, we're always trying to have this tough exterior that says, I know everything, and I'm the boss, and I'm the winner, and I'm the one that makes all the rules. And I just think that already just causes such a fight, a barrier. But I'm curious though, like just for some of those people that are creating new relationships in their life, and I mean, how important is it for maybe a newer couple to understand each other's personalities, understand the love languages, understand, before it gets like super serious, because I feel like so many people that are together today in this world, like, and I believe in there's got to be work on, on a marriage, and you're actually, it's a work in progress, those type of things. But could it be said that there are a lot of people out there that are just uncompatible? Like they're just completely different people. I mean, how important would it be? I'm curious to know from your thoughts, How important would it be for somebody to really understand that person's personality? Because what's happening, you're right. You have these avatars, you have these fake images of what everybody looks like. And then people get attracted to that fake image. And then they go, and then again, they're 10 years down the line in a marriage and they're going, what the hell did I do? We're not even compatible. We don't even like the same things, you know, like the Paula Abdul, right? What did she say? Opposites attract. But I don't know. Is that, you know, what's your thoughts, man?
That's a great question, because it's a great question. And it's a deep question because we have a radio show and we've interviewed a lot of people all over the world. And so when you look at different cultures around the world, it could be, it depends. And there's variable, it's a very complex thing, because we can think about just like between you and I, and maybe like in the United States, but then that may be different if you're in India or China or Russia. And so we've been really expanding international recently to like, wow, they grew up completely different. And we're kind of like scripting a documentary about all that, the different cultures and the relationships between all that. But to kind of just bring it home to make it more simple, I think there is a company, there's a guy named, his name is Daniel Schmottenberger, and he's an incredible guy. He used to be the chief scientific officer of Neurohackers, this company that I love. I'm not tied to it anyway, but he talks about how chemistry lies. And he's focused on that for a long period of time because he sees the chemicals and all this kind of stuff, and he studies that. Well, I think most people just think about the feeling that they get around people, like the chemistry. And it could be the chemistry of opposites attract, or it could be the chemistry of something else. But people don't look deeper. People are just looking in the physical. They're not looking at the mental, the emotional, the child within. They're not looking at the energetics of things. They're just, because society and media have just focused on chemistry, just one factor of the wheel. And I think it's important, whether it's opposite personalities, opposite tracks. I honestly don't think there's a complete, like, there's not a formula for everybody, because we're all different. We all like different things. And I think regardless if there's different personalities, whether there's opposite or common ground, I think people need to take some time to really reflect within themselves and the relationship when they're first starting. There's two sides of the coin here, Daniel. There's a lot of people that will go into a relationship for a long period of time, right? And they should have like said no a long time ago. But there's also the other side of the coin where now, especially people in self-development, they'll see like one little thing and they're like, oh, nope, red flag. Yep, I'm done. Sorry, we can't be together anymore. And they leave. And it's like, whoa. Like there's a little bit two polarizations on both sides. Like when me and Rachel first met, I had trust issues and she used to lie a lot. and it's a whole different thing. And so when we came together, it was an opportunity for a complete blowout or for deeper connection. And so we had a lot of things that we differed on, but obviously there was some common ground too. But we took the time to unravel that a little bit, create a safe space, see what was there, communicate effectively, know that triggers are gifts, know that we have a certain reality, a certain perception of the world and each other, right? But that may not be actuality, just our reality. And I think because we knew all those things, back to the opposites attract, different personalities, if you have a safe space, if you know how to communicate, if you understand triggers or gifts, and you understand that you guys have a different lens on the world, if you guys get to share each other's lenses, back to seek to understand, like, hey, check out my glasses, then you really start to go past the chemistry and you started to really get to like really deep, beautiful things. And regardless if it works or not, fantastic, right? People are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And why not go into that just for the benefit of experience and adventure and exploration and discovery of life and relationships and all that has to offer. And I think when both come into that, people are just like, I have the list. This is what I need to do. You're off on this one a little bit. Oh, you said that one thing, I'm out. Or they don't bring up it's like, no, communicate about this. I could have had a reality of what I thought this red flag was. But then you started talking about, I seek to understand, like we were talking about. Then I'm like, oh, wow, it's because of my lens, my perception. I was thinking about it over here, but you're actually over here. Amazing. Then instead of that blowout, you had a deeper connection and a deeper connection. I think those are just great opportunities for a deeper connection if you allow them to be. And then again, 1% better relationship starts to flourish. There's that fertile soil again. So I think I know that was a little long answer, but I wanted to, because it's so complex. You have to talk about all those factors.
I think, well, I mean, you're right on. I mean, I think that as you summed it up, it was really just comes down to trying to understand that other person, right? I mean, when we do seek to understand, I mean, the world just becomes so much more clear because, it's kind of like that partner that wants you to read their mind, where that never works, right? I mean, you could try it all the time, you could hope for it, but we're not a lot of us have ESP, right? So it's going to be a difficult life, versus saying, I really want to understand you. I really want to know what you're thinking. I want to, like you said, explore that person's whole personality. And when two people come into that, that's when I think it starts becoming really, really fun. I want to, as we kind of close it out, just in the last couple of minutes here, I want to ask you about your Higher Love workshop. And I know that you guys have an incredible workshop right now. And there's a lot of people right now that are in, marriages and relationships or friendships or whatever, and they want to increase their value of their relationships. And I know that that's what you and Rachel have done a great job at. And look, I mean, you guys, I mean, you're really putting the entertainment, the edutainment in the entertainment. And so I think it's kind of cool watching your Instagram. If you guys make sure you leave your Instagram at some point, because it's really a fun Instagram to watch. And
thank you.
And I just, but I want to know about the workshop, so that way people can feel like, hey, if this is something they feel is right for them, they can, they can hook up with you guys and reach out to you and be a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the workshops or the retreats or the group coaching, all that stuff is all about, if you want a strong body, a peaceful mind, and a home full of a higher love, then, take a peek, take a gander and open the door to those possibilities, because I think a lot of people have been, stained and broken over the years for lots of reasons. And they don't open up the door to love. They're afraid to. But the trajectory of your entire life, especially in the relationship world, all relationships, I would say, is how much love are you letting in? The more and more that you're able to let love in any capacity, the trajectory of your life will seriously and exponentially change. And a lot of people don't realize that. They'll start to little by little. And they're thinking they just don't want to experience pain. But there's just a different relationship with pain. Pain can be one of our best teachers. Pain is not suffering, it's just pain. A lot of times pain is growth, right? If I can have critical thinking and have a lot of pain in my brain. I experience pain in the gym to get my muscles bigger, faster, stronger. We're adaptogens. We get bigger, faster, stronger with certain types of good pain, hormetic stress, good stress, right? And so I think people are afraid to feel again. People are afraid to do that because what if I do that? Well, that's great. It's just a part of the journey. And if you have a different lens to that, you're able to start to hit a higher love, both for yourself, others, the world around us. And life becomes a lot more beautiful. You start to see life in a different way, and you tend to live it a lot more fully. So if any of these things are resonating, then we have a new workshop coming up mid-October, along with the new group coaching, because we like to have those two side to side. So mid-October, around October 17th, we're having a new workshop about this, along with group coaching, to have that cohort go into there, where we'll keep you accountable and be there for you along your journey, so that you can really have the love and lifestyle you've always wanted.
Awesome. All right, man. How do we get a hold of you? How do we find you? Because there's a lot of people right now, they're going to love this podcast. This is one of my favorite conversations. And people want to be a part of what you and Rachel are doing. So tell us about how to connect.
So Instagram, you mentioned Instagram. We have a lot of our stuff and links all in our bios. That we made it very simple because a lot of people are there. So Our company is called Relationship Renegades, and the handle is relationship.renegades. And so that's what it is on Instagram, but you can put Relationship Renegades on YouTube or Facebook or what have you, and it'll pop up. Mine is Emilio, my first name, underscore Palafox, underscore. But if you go to Relationship Renegades, you'll be able to find us too, me and Rachel, and we're doing our life's work, and we're going to do it to the day we transition.
Great, man. Great. Well, I want to thank everybody for getting on with us today. And look, if you enjoyed this podcast, do me a huge favor and like and subscribe and share this with somebody that you know that you feel would benefit by having a better relationship. Like, who doesn't want to have a better, more healthy relationship in their life, whether it be a marriage, whether it be just a partnership, or whether it be just a friendship, or whether it be, creating better relationships in business. So there's so many applications that relationships, why they're so dang important. And so make sure that you share this, and then reach out to Emilio and Rachel and just let them know. Just say, hey, I saw you on Wealth on the Beach podcast, and we loved it. We loved hearing you, and we loved the information, and it was valuable. If you appreciate what we're doing here, go out there and help us out, help get that, that message heard by more people. So I appreciate all of you for being here. I appreciate you, Emilio.
Thank you, brother.
All of you, to continue to dream bigger than ever. You got to get after it, but most importantly, do it now. God bless you. We will see you at the top.